Hi, Erin. Hi, Meg. So I got your question, Erin. I'm looking at a practice course right now, so it's just going to be easier for me to show you how to do this because there are two questions really. One about creating question sets so that each student gets a random set of questions, and then the second one is how to deploy those to your different students. So one thing you're going to want to do is create groups. That's the first thing. I would recommend creating 3 groups, one for each of the CRNs that's in the class. So you're in the control panel, you go down to users and groups, and then in your groups, you should create your groups similar to this. So you want to do create and then select manual enroll, and you're going to do group and then whatever your CRN is, right? Or however you want to call these, it really doesn't matter what you call your groups. But have one for each CRN or one for each group of students that's taking the test at a different time. And then you turn off the group visibility to the students and you turn off all of these tools. All of these get turned off, uncheck, 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 keep those all unchecked, and then you add users, and so then you go in and you select the students who belong to that CRN, and this part's just manual. You're going to have to figure out who belongs where, and you hit submit. There's a submit button down here. Okay, then we go submit again. So you'll do that 2 more times to get the 3 groups that you have of students. And then, let's see, by the way, this is kind of handy because you can bulk, what can you do? Yeah, you can say email group in case you needed to email one CRN of students. I don't know, it might be kind of handy. Anyway, what was I going to say about that? Okay, so now we are going to, like, let's say you've got a place for quizzes. So we're going to build a content area and call this bio quizzes. Okay, we're going to go in here, and now we're going to go to our assessment test, and I'm going to create a new test. And here's our first quiz. That's all you need is to give it a title. Okay, now here's the part about reusing your questions in a question set. So under your reuse question option here, you want to create a question set. Okay, that's what's going to let you select a set of questions, and then the students receive, each of them individually receives a subset of those questions. So we're going to say question set, and then you need to have your questions, you'll have them in maybe by pools. You've got your questions organized, or maybe they're organized by tests. Anyway, you'll need to click on the buttons in here to get the questions that you want displayed. These are like your filters in order to get, to the questions that you're looking for. So I've got 20 questions that meet my criteria, so I'm going to go ahead and select all of those questions, and it tells me I've selected 20 questions, and I hit submit. So those are the 20 questions that I want to be used for this quiz. Now every student, by default, it's set up to just display 1 question to each student, but I want, let's say, 10 questions for each student. So it's 10 questions for each student, but there's a random that's just going to select 10 of those 20. So each student's getting a different 10, probably. Questions in the set, so I can expand this link here to see the 20 questions. I can also change the points per question over here. So by default, it's set up to be 10, but I want that to just be 1 point per question and hit submit, then I can see that my total points for the quiz is 10 points. So you get the idea there. But the important thing to change is this number, because by default it'll just be 1. We lots of times hear questions from, we get emails or calls from students saying, hey, I only had 1 question in my quiz. That's because the instructor forgot to update that to the number of questions that they want each student to receive. So that's how you want to deal with question sets. You'd have, it looks like in your email, you'd have 16 questions in your question set, and then 10 also selected from the pool. So let me know if you need more info on that. So let's go in. We haven't yet deployed this quiz. We've created it, but now when we go assessments and test, we should see here's our first quiz. So I'm going to hit and select that quiz and hit submit. And now here's my test options. So here's where I want to, yes, make the link available, no, not that. So you can change any of these settings that you need to, set the timer so that they have 1 hour, let's say, whatever you want. So here's your dates, the default dates for the test, okay? You could make this match, these dates match the dates that you want one of the groups to have access to the test. So let's say you want one group to have access to it all day today. Okay, so we'll say all day today, the 3rd. Okay, then here's the test availability exceptions area. So this is where you can give groups of students different settings, but still use the same test. So now I'm going to say, I'm going to look for the groups that I created, which should be in this list somewhere. And I want to do those 3 groups. And what will happen is it basically copies the settings that I used above, and then it's asking me if there's other things that which of these do I want to change, right? So I guess I don't actually need one for my first CRN, because for my first CRN, they're just going to use today. Okay, let's say for my second CRN, I wanted it available tomorrow. So then my availability would be tomorrow, the 4th, 12 a.m., and then tomorrow, end of day. Save. And then my third CRN is going to be the next day, for example, all day. Okay, save that. So then you can see pretty clearly the different availability. That's the only setting that I've changed, though you have the option to change other settings. Okay. So that's really all there is to it. I wouldn't set a due date for the test because it sounds like each of your 3 groups has a different due date. So in that case, I would just leave it blank. Okay, but that's how you can use the same test and give different groups of students different availability days. If you need more on that, let me know. Okay, thank you.